NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell is encouraging football teams to sign up third-rate quarterback Colin Kaepernick so he can sneer at America while simultaneously collecting millions and driving his team to ignominious defeat because he's a third-rate quarterback. Colin Humperdinck is the player who refused to stand during the national anthem in 2016, saying, quote, and this is a real quote, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color," unquote. Now the NFL is saying that Mr. Chopper Stink was not disrespecting the flag when he disrespected the flag, but was only trying to express his utter disdain for everyone who lived under the flag, including those who had fought and died for the flag, so that third-rate quarterback Swollen Sapperface could have the right not to stand during the national anthem. The NFL, which was paid $8.1 billion last year by Americans who enjoy the freedoms guaranteed by the flag, said hiring Stalin Stinkerdunk would not be a way of poking each and every one of those Americans in the eye or spitting on their country, which has led the world in civil rights and indeed not only invented many of the civil rights people around the world enjoy, but also sent many of its sons to defend those rights, although it never sent Hole Nasserschmuck because he was too busy playing football, although not very well. Los Angeles Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn said he was very interested in bringing Small and Mindersuck onto the team because it fit in with his plan to lose every game next year while insulting the entire country and paying out the hard-earned money of his fans to a third-rate player who hates them, not to mention everything they hold dear. Roger Goodell said hiring Wallen Hoopty-Doo also fits in with his plans, which are to transform the NFL from a vastly profitable enterprise to a distant memory of something that used to matter. Sort of like Colin Kaepernick. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hooray!
All right, we are back again for the last day before the Klavanless weekend, but it won't be a Klavanless weekend, in fact, because tonight we have the Backstage show, which goes on at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, so I'll be back for that. And then on Friday, I'm doing my All Access, so I will be on for All Access Friday at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock, wherever you guys are, whatever other part of the country. And so please to also stick with the Klavan, the Klavan-y goodness, to suck more Klavan-y goodness out of the air, go to the YouTube channel for Andrew Klavan. We need your subscriptions, and we are tracking your comments for anybody who is more witty than the, run-of-the-mill schmucks who usually listen to my show. But we've got one from Kenny Skagel, who says, I am so glad that Klavan has renewed his VPN subscription. The last thing we need is some leftist media watchdog getting a hold of his searches for Kayleigh McEnany domination videos. How you knew about that with my VPN subscription in place, I don't know, but it is true. I like, I like watching that, and I like rewatching the scene in Species where the hot blonde rips the guy's spine out. It's hard to tell the difference between the two things. When Jesus Christ, whom some of you may remember from the Bible as the Son of the living God, was asked when the end of days would come, he responded, "No one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows." In other words, not even Jesus, whom some of you may remember from the last sentence, is the Son of the living God, knows when history will be over. We only know it will be over someday, guaranteed. Now, hilariously, some Christians over the years have interpreted this verse to mean that they know exactly when the end of history will come. Go figure. The Seventh-day Adventists, who are now a fairly mainstream Protestant group, was actually founded by a man who declared that Jesus would return to earth between the spring of 1843 and the spring of 1844. And you might ask, how could someone make that prediction when Jesus, the Son of the living God, I'm sorry to keep repeating that, but people keep forgetting, Jesus said even he didn't know. The answer is simple. When you know for sure something immense will eventually happen, it becomes easy to fixate on it, like a child who can't stop thinking about his birthday or a hypochondriac who can't stop thinking about his death. So it is with the end of our republic. We know that someday our republic will fall. All things made by mortal man are mortal. And as predicted on the show, we are going through a moment of madness right now, brought on by the end of the Chinese virus crisis and kind of release of tension. It's easy to think that the end of the republic may be nigh, especially if you're of a conservative disposition and you always think the end of the republic is nigh. But of course, a prediction is like a constellation. It's like a shape drawn on an infinite number of points by connecting some points and ignoring others. There is another possible scenario. Democrats have given America a choice. The choice is between the violence, self-hatred, oppression, and blithering, irrational philosophy of the left, or sanity, order, and freedom. And America, as it usually does, will choose sanity. That's the other path. You can do a lot of damage in a moment of madness, and they may do a lot of damage in this one, and it's true that republics pass, but madness also passes. And personally, I am beginning to sense that a turning point is coming very quickly, maybe as soon as the protests this Juneteenth weekend. We'll see, because of course the only one who knows for sure is the living God. All right, we've got an interview with Jesse Lee Peterson. It's a pre-recorded interview. I hope you'll stay for that. He is like a voice of just honesty and truth. He's like Heather McDonald is also that kind of clear, just fearless honesty. I just love talking to the guy. I love talking to them both, but I love talking to Jesse Lee Peterson. I hope you'll stay for the interview with him. First, let us talk about Nutrafol. You may want to look like me and be bald, unless you're a woman, and then, probably not. Women don't often talk about thinning hair, but nearly half of all women do experience it as early as age 40. And if you're one of them, it can feel scary and stressful, which adds to the problem. So take charge of your hair growth and make the next few months your time to grow thicker, fuller, healthier hair. Nutrafol is formulated with potent botanicals to help you grow hair that remains strong, and it's physician formulated to be 100% drug-free. I'm always in favor of that. They use natural, clinically effective botanicals for better hair growth through whole body health. On top of thicker, stronger hair without lasers or chemicals, Nutrafol's ingredients may also help you get a handle on better sleep and less stress. Visit Nutrafol.com and take their hair wellness quiz for customized product recommendations. You can grow thicker, healthier hair and support our show by going to Nutrafol.com and using promo code Klavan to get 20% off. This is their best offer available anywhere, plus free shipping on every order. Get 20% off at Nutrafol.com. Promo code Klavan, the best offer anywhere, 20% off at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code Klavan for hair as strong as you are. Now, you may have noticed there's no E in Nutrafol. I was thinking that reminds me of something. Oh, yeah, it's how you spell Klavan. It's Klavan. There's no E's in that either. So it's really interesting. A lot of crazy stuff is going on, and the press, because the press is part of the craziness and supports the craziness and trying to sell us the craziness and is actually trying to drive us crazy, I don't think they know what it sounds like. I don't think the press actually knows how crazy this stuff is. So we're having all these cancellations because people get wrapped up in social media, they get wrapped up in the press, and they begin to think this is a problem. So we're getting, not just bringing Colin Kaepernick. I think he was really a bad quarterback in the first place, but he was also just an irritating little person without much brains and without really a fair description of America. He's the guy who went nuts when Trump killed an absolute terrorist and supported the terrorist rather than America. He's not the guy the NFL needs to bring in. I'm seriously predicting now that in 10 years, the NFL will be gone. It will be Kodak. It'll be just be a memory. But we're seeing like Aunt Jemima has to cancel their thing, and Mrs. Butterworth, and now the Land O'Lakes Indian is already gone. And it's funny, all these kind of familiar, beloved minority trademarks are disappearing from the scene. So that'll be helpful, because then all we'll see are the Black Leftist Matters protesting and rioting and screaming at us that we're supposed to feel guilty and we're supposed to do stuff for them, when the question is, what are they doing for themselves and what are they doing to help their personal situation? So a lot of madness coming out. I think it's really important to take a look at just some of the craziness that's happening, because that is the thing I think will turn the tide. I think things that don't make sense ultimately collapse. And the question is, how much damage will they do before they fall? With all these cancellations, it's interesting. Variety ran this crazy article about 10 movies that need warnings labels. We have to put warning labels on our movies because you're just a thumb-sucking child and you can't decide what you think of a movie for yourself. And the Variety article begins, "It's now widely accepted that despite being a beloved classic, Gone with the Wind needs an explanation of its context when it's screened on TV or in theaters." Now, that's really interesting that he says this. And this is Variety, the same paper that thought that all these anti-American war on terror films were bombing because people weren't interested in the war on terror. They didn't realize they were bombing, as American Sniper then went on to prove, because people weren't interested in watching Americans be the bad guy when compared to Islamists who are low, evil people, right? And they didn't think like America was anywhere near that kind of moral level. They thought they were elevated. And so when they showed American Sniper and it became a huge hit, Variety and other trade papers were like, wow, we thought people weren't interested in the war on terror. In other words, they are living up their own butts. They're living inside their own butts. And they're thinking, well, in here, I can just see that most people think that Gone with the Wind needs a label, a warning label on it. I was thinking about Gone with the Wind. I don't want to go, there's so much news going on and all that, and we want to talk about some of it, but I want to just talk about this kind of general thing that's going on. Gone with the Wind is a great movie. The book is kind of a potboiler, but Gone with the Wind is an actual great film. And it's really worth watching if you've never seen it. I mean, I know people who've never seen Gone with the Wind. It is one of the most entertaining, romantic, dramatic, beautiful films and well-acted films. And there's a famous line in it where Scarlett O'Hara, who's this Southern belle, this kind of totally phony Southern belle, and Rhett Butler, who is this gun-running kind of rogue, who falls in love with her, even though he knows she's no good, because he's kind of no good himself. He's always making fun of her hypocrisy, and she's trying to protect her reputation. And he says to her, with enough courage, one can do without a reputation. And that's something that a lot of these companies, Mrs. Butterworth and Land O'Lakes, there's something they might remember, that a lot of the people who are condemning them are in the minority, or vastly in the minority. They are not, and they're even in the minority in the sort of identity groups that the left has segregated them into. So it's like most women don't support radical feminism. Most blacks know that Black Lives Matter, I think, is a sham and is not actually doing very good for them. We'll talk to Jesse Lee Peterson about that. He had a really interesting take on that. But Gone with the Wind is a movie about the fall of the South, and that's what's Gone with the Wind, is the society of the South has gone with the wind. And the thesis underneath the film, and I don't know, I've never been able to finish the book, so I don't know if it's in the book as well, but the thesis underneath the film is really that it fell because it wasn't what it appeared to be, that it was fraudulent, that partly it was built on the backs of slaves, and that is included in the movie, and also that it wasn't really what it seemed to be. So what you have in it is you have Rhett Butler, who comes across as being very frank and honest and being this rogue, and he is kind of a rogue, but he's also a man of solid integrity who lives by a code and sticks by that code. So everyone who really knows him, who sees the reality of him, loves him and follows him because he's a righteous guy. He's a guy with integrity. Whereas Scarlett O'Hara is constantly pretending to be this highborn lady, but in fact is a bit of a whore. I mean, she's somebody who will sell herself for money. She's somebody who'll sell herself to save her beloved plantation. And Rhett is always kind of mocking her for this. And it takes a long time for Rhett to get over his sexual attraction to her, to actually see her as she is. And then you have this Ashley Wilkes character, who is a very he's very handsome. He's very upright. He kind of represents the South. And all the time that he is living with this beautiful woman, Melanie, as I recall her name is, who's actually a beautiful Christian woman who really is what she is. He's flirting, he's drawing Scarlett along because Scarlett is in love with this image of the South as this noble guy. But in fact, Ashley is weak and he's divided and he was never really what he seems to be. And the message of Gone with the Wind is a society that's built on phoniness will ultimately collapse. And that is what happens to the South, And I think that this is what I'm seeing hoping will happen now. I know it will happen, but I don't know if it'll happen fast. And I don't know if it'll happen fast enough, for instance, to affect the election, or if it'll happen fast enough to save us from the real violence it's doing. So I had this experience, a really interesting experience this morning. I woke up with this idea, because I never really go to sleep. So I'm lying there thinking about stuff. And I started talking to my wife about this idea. My wife always teases me that I start ranting at her even before she has her cup of coffee. And then I picked up the Wall Street Journal and I was reading Dan Henninger's column. And I always kind of think of Dan Henninger as he's a smart guy, he's an honest guy, I really like him, but he's kind of the avatar of the establishment. I always think of him as a little bit, down Broadway. And so while I sometimes agree with points he makes, he doesn't usually say what I'm thinking. But this morning, he said exactly it was almost the same words I had been speaking to my wife were in this column about people deserting the cities. Now, it's only a few years since America became a mostly urban nation. People had been moving into the cities to go where the big money was and to go where the new industries were. And that was a real change. You know, Thomas Jefferson depended on this country to have the values of a farming country. He believed very much in the farming values that would make people realistic, it would make them free, it would make them dedicated to doing their own job and being self-responsible. And so our becoming an urban nation was a big deal. And when people kept saying that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, even though she lost the electoral vote, what they were saying was that she won the cities. And that's exactly what happened. She won the cities. Trump won America. I mean, when you see the red victory that he won, it's huge, except for the cities. He lost the cities. And since most of the people were living in the cities, it was really a battle between the electoral college, which was set up to defend the states, which sometimes don't have the same population as the cities, but not to let the cities rule the country because they believed that that was not the way to go. So here, let me read you a little bit of Henniger's column because it's almost me word for word. He says, in just 3 months, it has become clear that modern urban progressivism is politically incompetent and intellectually incoherent. This is what I was saying, right? And he's talking about the fact that people are leaving the cities now. He says, after the days and weeks of marches through cities, what has fallen out of it is basically one idea: defund the police. In New York, with blocks of stores boarded up and cherry bombs exploding nightly everywhere, the city council has agreed to cut the city's police budget by $1 billion, or 1/6. How hard is it to connect those dots? A shapeless mass declares multiple blocks of Seattle now belong to it, and when asked how long it could go on, Democratic Mayor Jenny Durkan wanly offers, "I don't know, we could have a summer of love." The first one was in 1967, also accompanied by massive urban unrest. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo over the weekend issued a plaintive request to the street protests. You don't need to protest. You won. You won. Then he said, what reform do you want? What do you want? Historically, the media and press have served as an arbitrating function among competing urban forces. No longer. Through the pandemic and now, the protests, much of the urban-based media, have become bizarrely invested in apocalyptic storylines, picking at scab after scab and problem after problem with not much effort at sorting substantive policy alternatives other than heading deeper into the progressive frontier. You know, and we see this in Atlanta. The police officer who shot Rayshard Brooks has been indicted for felony murder. I mean, this is insane. It has to go before a grand jury. But he was indicted for felony murder. And of course, the Atlanta police stopped showing up. They went on the blue flu, as they call it. They started boycotting because, you know, this guy, Rayshard Brooks, was a career criminal. He had a rap sheet as long as your arm. He attacked these cops and fired a taser at them. And now the Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard said, well, a taser is not a lethal weapon, whereas I don't know, it was like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, he went after a police officer for attacking a student with a taser, saying, oh, this is a lethal weapon. So these guys are making no sense, and it makes no sense for us to continually be, attacking ourselves and attacking each other and saying America is a bad country and America is a racist country, when, of course, America has done everything it can to be as little racist as possible when we are dealing with, a multi-ethnic country like none that has ever existed, at least since the fall of Rome. I mean, maybe the Roman Empire was as multi-ethnic as we are, so we're dealing with that. And we're dealing with 55 years of Democrat policies that have basically turned a certain section of the black population into a crime-ridden, dysfunctional underclass. And those policies have to be attacked and they have to be changed. And this goes even, like I said, into rewriting civil rights law so we get our right of association back so blacks can have that too, so they too can choose their way and take responsibility for their own lives. So the kind of nonsense, the kind of irrationality, the double dealing, and the lying is coming to the surface. I think people are only going to suffer so much. They have taken a lot of this to assuage their guilt, but it won't go on forever. All right, let us talk about LifeLock. You know, we often talk about how we love saying certain sponsors' names. How can you not say saying LifeLock when you sit down on your computer? How can you not think, like, I know they're out there, hackers out there. They're trying to get my information. They're trying to run games on me. They're trying to steal, track me and find out where I'm going. But I have LifeLock. I have LifeLock. My life is locked. And so you can say that with yourself. And I've got one. I'm actually using a work computer, so I haven't got it, but I've got it on my personal computer. It is good to know that they are watching. They ask, they tell me when people interfere with my stuff. That happens kind of more often than you would think it does. And LifeLock detects a wide range of identity threats, like your social security number for sale on the dark web. If they detect your information has potentially been compromised, they'll send you an alert, and you have access, and this is a big deal, you have access to a dedicated restoration specialist to your case should you become a victim. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. LifeLock can see threats that you might miss on your own. Join now and save up to 25% off your first year. Go to lifelock.com/Klavan. That's lifelock.com/Klavan for 25% off. And make sure to say LifeLock. How do you spell Klavan? Because it's KLA.
There are no E's in Klavan.
There are no E's in Klavan. And, a lot of this stuff, it plays in, there was a Supreme Court decision this morning that I'm not going to talk about at length because I haven't had a chance to read it. So I haven't quite decided how far it goes, but it was really bad. It looked really bad on the surface, saying that Trump didn't have the right to rescind DACA, to overturn DACA, when DACA was essentially put there illegally in the first place. And it was a John Roberts-led decision. And John Roberts, I think, just hates Trump so much he's lost his mind. I really do. A Bush appointee. And, we always say, why is it that we can't win back the Supreme Court? Why is it our appointments like Neil Gorsuch going over to the other side on that ridiculous civil rights case? Why can't we win back the Supreme Court when we have bred so many originalist judges? And I think the basic reason is that the system itself, because of civil rights law to some degree, has collapsed, and we no longer have people who are elected responsible for our laws. You really cannot name the last time a law was created by the legislature, a word that means the people who make the laws. You can't remember the last time a law was put in place that you could read, that you could understand, that you know what it is. I mean, Obamacare, they were making Obamacare up as they went along. They were decreeing, we're going to hold off instituting Obamacare. They were just making stuff up. And so the system is genuinely broken. It really is. And so people can make speeches in the Congress without any responsibility. They can pass laws that nobody ever reads, that just become a springboard for agencies that make regulations to make any regulation they want, and then those regulations can't be challenged because the Supreme Court has said they can't be challenged. And this is a problem with Donald Trump. As Donald Trump came to office saying he wasn't going to touch entitlements, and even though Trump has done a great job, dialing back regulations. No one, as Donald Trump himself, I'm sure would say, no one has done as much as I have to dial back regulations. He has not dialed back the source of the regulations. He has not shut down some of these agencies that need to be shut down, or at least made sure, or at least passed a law saying that they don't have the power to make law. And I would pass a law saying no law can be over 10 pages long. That's the first thing I would do. No law over 10 pages long. I have to be able to read a law in order to be governed by it, because otherwise, how the hell do I know what power the government has? So we have really gotten it a long way down the line and away from our republic. And the question is who is going to stand up in this moment? This is the moment. This right now. I mean, it really is. This is this moment of madness. And it's partly, what can I say? It's partly incidental. It's part of this incident of this Chinese virus coming, the lockdown, the economic blow, followed by the people going nuts over a shooting, people going nuts over a killing in Minneapolis, and running riot through the streets. And it revealed to us that the people who were supposed to protect us, the people who were supposed to run our cities, the people who were supposed to say, okay, you can have a point, you can have a protest, but no, you can't riot through the streets. Those people have stopped. doing what they're supposed to do. You know, it really is interesting when you think about Seattle and you think about the woman saying, "Oh, it's the summer of love, and it's a walk in the park, and it's a just a wonderful little farmers market that we're having, a block party that we're having in this zone that's been taken over by these terrorist thugs." The question I have is, well, why should I pay taxes? The people there can't get. They call 911. They can't get service. They cannot get protected from these guys. Why should you pay taxes? I mean, what are you paying for? If the mayor of the city essentially feels that she does not need to be in control of the city, anyone with arms can take the city back. And the question I have is when right-wingers start to take things over, are they going to be dealt with in the same way? So this kind of thing that makes no sense, when things make no sense, after a while, people start to say, this makes no sense. And what tyrants do is tyrants play whack-a-mole with the truth, because the truth never dies. The truth just keeps popping up, so they keep hitting the truth. And that is essentially what you see on NBC, on CNN, on all these news things. They're playing whack-a-mole with the truth. Anytime the truth pops up, they try and push it down. There was this incredible story yesterday or the day before of NBC trying to shut down the Federalist. The Federalist is I get the Federalist every morning. I read the Federalist every morning. It's mostly an opinion site, but sometimes it has some really good insights into the facts. And it's no way, it's Molly Hemingway's thing. It's no way this is a far right venue at all. But so NBC started to say that NBC reporter, I'll read this from a piece by Ben Dominic and Sean Davis, who run the place. NBC reporter Adele Momoko Fraser, she said that Google had demonetized the Federalist site, preventing them from earning money through Google Ads for violating its rules. NBC published an article claiming that Google had made a formal decision to demonetize the Federalist, and that we had been formally warned that we were in violation, and that our current specifically articles criticizing the Black Lives Matter movement and media coverage of recent riots was a violation of Google's rules. Well, this turned out Google said not to be true, that there was some problem with the comments section. They do have a rule about having ads in the comment section because people say the craziest stuff in the comment section and the advertisers don't want to be associated with it. So apparently Google and the Federalist are working this out. And meanwhile, the Justice Department has proposed rolling back that 230 protection that gave these sites so much power when they were just little sites. It was to protect them so they could grow. Now they've grown into titans. And basically it said that they were protected from lawsuits as if they were platforms like the phone company, but they could act a little bit like publishers in curating their material. And that now makes no sense either, because they're shutting down anybody who doesn't believe in black leftist matter, anybody who doesn't believe in the current trends. All of this brings me back to this decision that was made by Neil Gorsuch and the other Supreme Court justices, saying that you can't fire someone for being transgender because it's essentially firing somebody for his sex, for behaving in a certain way when he is, that a woman could behave. A woman could come in with a dress and makeup on. So why can't a man come in with a dress and makeup on? That's being discriminatory according to sex, essentially saying that the differences between the sexes don't exist. And this is another thing that makes no sense. And the interesting thing that it brings up to me is if you can fire somebody, and people are being fired for not supporting Black Lives Matter. They are being fired for that. And people, there's a guy in York County, Pennsylvania, the Northeastern Superintendent of a school. The Northeastern Superintendent is recommending that the school board fire an intermediate school principal accused of sharing a social media post calling Black Lives Matter a lie. They want to fire him for that. A guy named Tim Gordon, who's a theology teacher at a Catholic high school, who has like 6 children, and his daughter is suffering from a horrible brain problem, so he needs the insurance. They are going to fire him because he's made comments about Black Lives Matter as well. So my question is, if you can fire somebody for disagreeing with Black Lives Matter, can you fire somebody for disagreeing with gay rights? Can you fire somebody who says, I think homosexuality is all right? And you say you're fired, and you say, well, you can't fire me because I'm protected by being gay. You say, I'm not firing you for being gay. I'm firing you for having an untoward political opinion that I disagree with, like these people who are firing the people at Black Lives Matter. Eventually, these things have to make sense. And if they don't make sense, people are going to turn away. And the hypocrisy also, the double standard, is also a slap in the face. I just want to play this one thing. Trump, I'm really happy Trump is having a rally this weekend in Oklahoma. I think Trump needs to get out of Washington. I think Trump is suffering from the greenhouse effect. I think he's suffering from that effect that takes over Supreme Court justices' minds, where they start to think they have to serve the press and the left and this kind of elite opinion instead of serving the law. And I think recently Trump has gotten a little bit, he's starting to pull back from his usually aggressive defense of the culture, which is really what he's there for. He's pulled back from his aggressive defense of the culture. I think because he's been stuck in Washington so long. He's been stuck in Washington. He's surrounded by advisors. He's surrounded by aides. He's surrounded by the press. And the press, as I've always told you, is not about one story or another story. It's about creating an atmosphere. That's what they're there to do. And they're creating an atmosphere that we're all on board now. We all want to see a warning sign on. Everybody agrees that Gone with the Wind should have a warning sign. Everyone agrees. Everyone. I'm talking to the guy at the desk next to me and he agrees. I'm talking to the guy at the desk on the other side and he agrees. So everyone agrees. And I think Trump may be getting a little bit infected by this. And I think he needs to get out and see the people who elected him and also see the people in general and start talking to them again about the things that matter. Because if they're going to throw away our culture on a lie, if they're going to throw away our culture on a double standard, if they're going to throw away our culture by convincing us that most people agree with the riots and the looting and the taking over of Seattle and the Supreme Court and that sex makes no difference and the Supreme Court saying that Obama can put something in there by executive order, but Trump can't take it off. I think they're making a mistake, and I think it'll show up at the voting ballot booth if Trump takes advantage and speaks into the moment so that people don't have to be afraid. All right, Jesse Lee Peterson coming right up, and as I told you, we will be on the Daily Wire backstage at 3:30. Am I getting this right? 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. And if you're not already a Daily Wire member, you should consider getting a reader's pass to dailywire.com. This is the cheap version. You don't get the all access, but you do get to feed your children and pay your rent. It's a great value for only $3 a month. And when you sign up now, you get that first month for only 99 cents. You also get access to our mobile app, which is excellent. That's a good deal. I didn't actually realize that wasn't on the copy before. That's excellent deal. Mobile app is terrific. Articles are ad free, which is a big deal. And you get access to exclusive editorials. Ben had a good one about 8 leftist myths about race and racism in America. That's exclusive for people who subscribe, so you can get it for 99 cents and then $3 thereafter. And if you haven't checked out the Reader's Pass already, go to dailywire.com and sign up for just $1. We got Jesse Lee Peterson coming up in just a minute. So the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson is a guy I just admire enormously. I hope I can rightly call him a friend. I met him years ago when I did a piece for him. I mentioned it in the interview, a piece for City Journal called A Man Alone. And you should look that piece up. You really should. It's called A Man Alone. It's on the City Journal website. And it basically is about the fact that an honest man, and he's a black guy, but an honest guy in that field, is going to be isolated. He's the founder of Bond, a nationally recognized nonprofit dedicated to rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. He's the host of the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show. He has a book. It's called From Rage to Responsibility. You can get that book, and if you go on his website, you can get From Rage to Responsibility signed. But just a really remarkable guy, and you will hear it in this interview, just the voice of a guy speaking his honest heart without fear or favor. It really is amazing. Here's Jesse Lee Peterson. Jesse, it is great to see you, first of all. I wrote somewhere that in an empire of lies, only a crazy man will tell the truth. So I'm bringing you on because you may be the last person in America crazy enough to speak your mind.
That's right.
So I've been watching, there was this terrible killing in Minneapolis, and I've been watching the entire country go insane. Let me start with this. What are you seeing when you see this? When you see these demonstrations across the country, when you see politicians talking about defunding the police or even just reforming the police, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? What are you thinking about?
This is insane. And I can't believe that America is allowing this to happen. This is not about slavery. It's not about racism. It's not about so-called systemic racism. This is about turning America into something else, and I believe into a socialist society. And the blacks are being used in order to do that. And it's been happening for the last 60 to 70 years in the making. And I think now it's finally come to head. And if we don't stand up and do something about it, be honest about it, it's going to only get worse and we're going to lose America. And so it's not about slavery and all this systemic racism. That's a lie. And America knows it, but it's too afraid now to stand up and be honest and be strong because over the years, they have seen so many white people be destroyed, losing their jobs and called racist. And it reminds me of the Taliban when they want to control the society, they cut your head off and they show everyone if you stand up, this is what's going to happen to you. Well, that's what the blacks have done to the whites over the last 60 to 70 years. And now the Taliban are in control.
I think a couple of days ago, Jason Riley wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal saying there's a black silent majority that basically knows this, that basically knows they're being used. Do you agree with that? Do you think there is a black silent majority?
Absolutely. But they prefer the money over what is right. They prefer the power and control over what is right. We are a Christian nation. And what is happening now is evil. This whole battle is a battle between good and evil. And there are those people who love evil, and there are those who love good. And right now, the evil people are controlling the good for the power and wealth. And so there are a lot of black people. Most black people know that it's wrong, but because they're thinking about reparations, they're thinking about affirmative action, they want to take the people's stuff and control them. They don't love what is right enough to stand for what is right. So they'd rather take control of America, of white people, and use them for personal gain. That's what this is about.
So you and I famously had a debate on Donald Trump, which I admitted that you were right about, that you were supporting him, and I stood against him, and I finally said, you got it right, I got it wrong. How do you feel about the way he's reacting? He seemed to me to be a little slow off the block in this situation. He seems not to have gotten his reaction together very quickly. Or am I wrong about this?
I think you're partially right about it, but I think there are people around him who's telling him you should calm down and kind of do it in a weak kind of a way, cater to the people, because we do have elections coming up. And the media is so good at making the president look bad, look as though he's not for the people. And the people are not free thinkers. They don't see the greatness that he's done for this country already. And so we just finished up with the Chinese virus thing, and the Democrats are trying to bring us back to that. And the economy suffered for that. And now the economy is suffering due to all the riots and the looting. So I think the president is kind of listening to wrong advice, in my opinion, because people like the fact that he's strong. I've heard so many black people love the fact that he's strong, and they see the Democrats are trying to stop him. And a lot of them are starting to support him because of that. But I think he's a little weak in dealing with this, because if it was me, I would have brought in the military immediately and just stopped all this before it gotten this far. And I think had he not listened to other people, he would have done the same thing already.
You know, I've worried that because he's stuck in Washington with the virus, that maybe he's getting a little bit of that effect of being in the bubble, that he's not getting out and talking to the people who give him encouragement and sort of tell him that he's doing the right thing, even when the media fights back against him. I worry that he's stuck in Washington. He's getting that little bit of Washington in his head. But we'll see. He's going to start doing rallies. Yeah.
He's going to fire back up. He will start the rally soon. He has one coming up on I think it's coming Saturday, I believe. And you're going to see him on fire again.
I hope so, because he really has seemed a little slow. You look at, I go on Amazon.com, I go on Netflix, and they're selling me all these racial movies and these racial books. And, Jesse, we've known each other a while now, and I want everybody in America to be happy. But why do I have to look at that from Amazon? What are they telling me, and what should they be telling me?
It's part of the brainwashing, and they want you to cower down to the blacks, because Amazon is not supporting, I don't believe, what is right either. So they're selling hatred in order to deceive the American people, in order to control them. And I have to tell you, Andrew, as you know, I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama. I was born there. I grew up under the Jim Crow law. And all this stuff that they have said and are saying about slavery and Jim Crow? Absolutely not true. Yes, at one point slavery existed, and yes, at one point Jim Crow existed. But during those days, we had families. There were father and mothers, there were grandparents, and they taught us to work, and they bought land, and they went to black colleges, those that wanted to. But in that time, during those days, you were taught to work or go to trade school. And we were not hating white people. We were not taught that, oh, slavery is holding you down. I rarely heard about slavery. Or Jim Crow is stopping you. It just wasn't taught to hate the white man or to feel like victims. I never felt like a victim in America. I am an American. I've always thought of myself that way. I've never felt like a victim because growing up, I wasn't taught that. I didn't see anyone else in my family or my school teachers or anyone feeling that way. But the blacks have been made to feel that way since the civil rights movement. One of the worst things that has happened to America is the civil rights movement. That should have never happened because there's no such thing as civil rights, by the way. And if they had just changed the laws so that the same laws that govern white people would govern black people, we would have come together in a normal way. We wouldn't have this race issue today.
That's a really interesting point. One of the things that got me, I wrote an article about you for City Journal a long time ago that I hope people will take a look at. It's called, and I called it A Man Alone. And the reason I called it that is you've spent your life dealing directly with young black men, trying to set them on a right path. And that has isolated you in a lot of ways, whereas a guy like, I don't know, pick your guy, Al Sharpton Jr., who has just been a con man all this time, has become this major powerhouse walking into the White House, whereas you have a hard time getting this message heard. It's very frustrating to me because I know that there are so many young men without fathers, so many broken families that are destroying people. How does that message get spread? How do we break through from the race hustlers, break through the message of the race hustlers to start talking about family and also religion? I think Christianity has started to drain out of these communities too.
It has, that's right. And I have to tell you, man, that was an amazing article. I believe it was the first honest article about what I'm doing. I really do appreciate that. I think about that sometimes. We've been doing this now for 30 years. We've been rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man for 30 years now. And I have to tell you, we are now working with men and women around the world of all races. I am so busy counseling. We have an entrepreneur academy where we're teaching them to start businesses. We help find jobs. We have a home for young men. As busy as you can be. And that is because the people, by word of mouth, are helping to get the word out. When they overcome that anger, when they overcome that fallen state, they forgive their parents for not guiding them in the right way, their lives start to change. So they're telling other people about it. And in spite of the children of the lie trying to stop it, the word is still getting out. And that's one of the reasons I love what's right with all my heart, soul, and might, because it is of God. And when God is for it, can no one stop it? It may not be like what the live media doing with Al Sharpton, but the people that need to hear the truth are hearing it, and their lives are starting to change. And it's just amazing to see what happened. You should see our Sunday morning meetings now. They're packed with millennials and Zs and some older people. My show, just calls from Africa, Russia, the UK, all over Canada, all around the United States, South Korea, and just all over the world. People waking up to it. It's just been amazing to see it. It's word of mouth, the internet. I'm on the internet, so on the net, but it's getting around in spite of what's happening.
On that optimistic note, I will end there because I'm out of time. But it's great to see you, Jesse, and hope to get to come by Bond soon again and participate in one of your gatherings.
Absolutely, and I want people to know that July is White History Month. I started White History 2 years ago, and we'll get ready to celebrate the 3rd year of White History. Because, and you see the picture at White History Month, right? Because July, I chose July because July just feels white. It's vacation time. vacation time, summertime. And so we're going to be celebrating our third year of White History Month starting July 1st.
I will bring you back in July to discuss white history.
Absolutely. And they can check us out at rebuildingtheman.com, rebuildingtheman.com, or jlptalk.com.
What's the name of your latest book?
From Rage to Responsibility. From Rage to Responsibility. And if they want an autographed copy, they can go to rebuildingtheman.com or call 800-411-BOND, 800-411-2663. And we love you over here. We appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
You too. You're the best, Jesse. It's always great to see you. Thanks very much.
You too. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
That guy, on top of being just a straightforward, like no fear, fearless, honest guy, is a Trump-level troll. He is a troll at the Trumpian, before there was Trump, before there was Trumpian trolling, there was Jesse trolling. All right, I got to stop there. The show is over. But there's not the Klavan this weekend yet. We will be back with Backstage at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, and I will be on at 5 o'clock tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific tomorrow with the All Access Live. So you might survive. Who knows? If you do, the show will be back on Monday. I'm Andrew Klavan. This is The Andrew Klavan Show. The Andrew Klavan Show is produced by Robert Sterling. Executive producer, Jeremy Boring. Technical producer, Austin Stevens. And our supervising producer is Mathis Glover. Assistant director, Pavel Wydowski. Edited by Adam Sayevitz. Audio mixed by Robin Fenderson. Hair and makeup is by Jesua Alvera. Animations are by Cynthia Angulo. Production assistants, McKenna Waters and Ryan Love. The Andrew Klavan Show is a Daily Wire production. Copyright Daily Wire 2020.
If you prefer facts over feelings, aren't offended by the brutal truth, and you can still laugh at the insanity filling our national news cycle, well, tune in to The Ben Shapiro Show. We'll get a whole lot of that and much more. See you there.